Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Echo Worm Live. This is a live stream that we do every couple of weeks where we just go over all of the questions that you guys have been asking in the channel, all over the videos, questions you have about the channel, about future videos coming up, about certain subjects that we talk about on the channel, and just go through your questions and kind of address them here. If you guys have any questions during today's live stream, you're more than welcome to ask them in the chat. I'm usually open to answering most things that go through the chat. Of course, given the week that it is, we'll have some moderation on certain subjects and spoilers and stuff like that. But that being said, like I said, this is something we do every other Thursday. Today it's a little earlier than usual. We usually do it about 5 Eastern. Just for some personal reasons, I had to bump it up today. So hopefully that works for the majority of you. If you're watching this after the fact, thank you for being here. I very much appreciate it. You guys are more than welcome to drop questions in the comments section below rather than the live chat, and we will get to your questions during our next live stream, which should come up on November 21st. Flick Street Productions is in the chat saying, "Hey Ty, great to see you again. Hope you're liking my audiobook readings." I am. Go check out Flick Street Productions if you haven't already. That's another a great channel that I would like to support as well. Almond11 asks a question that I will get to in a second because it has been asked multiple times, and that's how we'll start our kind of pre-prepared questions today. Chad Fly says, "Why Hunger Games?" I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that question there. If you want to clarify, you're more than welcome to clarify, and I'd be happy to answer. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by why Hunger Games. But let's start with that question. Alman11 says, "When will you bring the Trials of Apollo to YouTube?" Now that I'm going to couple with about 2 pages full of questions. It's Kamau says, "Will you please do the other 2 Kane Chronicles?" Spacebun says, please read the other 2 Kane Chronicles books." Jesse Knox says, "Please do the other 2 Kane Chronicles books." Lexi-Ann Zimmerman says, "When will you add Kane Chronicles to YouTube?" Avocado Fanta says, "Could you read Percy Jackson and the Trials of Apollo?" Boss Whiskey says, "How about reading the Trials of Apollo?" Nikki Yell says, "Will you be doing the Trials of Apollo?" Katie Harris, the artist, says, "You should read Trials of Apollo." Melanie M says, "Will you be doing Trials of Apollo?" Almond14 previously said, "Will you please do the Trials of Apollo? Your voice would be perfect." I Love Bahais says, "Will Trials of Apollo eventually come to YouTube, or will I need to pay for it? And how long till it's on YouTube?" Eileen Wong says, "Are you going to read any more of Rick Riordan's books such as Trials of Apollo?" Alex Guerrero says, "Do you plan to do the Magnus Chase books?" Greekus says, "Do you plan on doing Magnus Chase?" And Ikea Tiger says, "Can you do Magnus Chase?" So all of those very long listed questions, the answer is yes, we will do all of them. Right now, the Kane Chronicles is up on YouTube through the first book. There are 3 Kane Chronicles books. All 3 will be up by the middle of December. The second one, I believe, comes out the week of Thanksgiving, and the third one should come up in full over on our Echo Worm full audiobooks channel. The daily chapters will air as they do on this channel, Echo Worm Audiobooks. So yes, all of that will come to YouTube, followed by Trials of Apollo. Now, currently, Trials of Apollo is up over on Patreon. So if you go over to our Patreon page, that is patreon.com/EchoWorm. There is a link below in the description. There's also links all over our channels where you can find our Patreon page. But patreon.com/EchoWorm. And if you go to the Collections tab, whether it be on your computer or on your mobile device, you should find something that looks like this. And if you go to Camp Half-Blood Chronicles, you will find a list of every single book that we have done in the Percy Jackson and Extended series. So Lightning Thief, all the way down through Percy Jackson into Heroes of Olympus, into the new Percy Jackson books, those being 6 and 7, eventually 8 will come out next year. And then after that, we have the chapters of the Trials of Apollo Hidden Oracle, which for some reason isn't loading for me at the moment, but that's okay. But we are through the first 38 chapters as of me recording this on the Hidden Oracle, the first of the Trials of Apollo books. That means that tomorrow chapter 39 will air. There are 39 chapters in the book, meaning that at 11 o'clock a.m. tomorrow morning, the entire full book, the first book of the Trials of Apollo, will be up over on Patreon. That's as little as $3 a month. It will be bumping up to $5 a month at New Year's just because of Patreon's new pricing schedule. But for as little as $5 a month, you can get access to all of those that are not yet on YouTube. So yes, Tomorrow, the first book of Trials of Apollo will be available over on Patreon. It will start airing daily on this channel on YouTube for free on December 14th, and then it will be up January 20th on our full audiobook channel as a full audiobook, and those will air daily chapters, one after the other. Typically, it's a little over a month that each one comes out, and then Magnus Chase will start then, I believe it's June, that if that schedule is correct, Magnus Chase will start next summer. So yes, the answer is yes, all of them will be up. You won't have to pay for them. I never hide content from anybody. It's just available in advance by about 2 months over on Patreon. So Trials of Apollo, the first book, will be up in full in January. It will start airing daily on this channel, December, I believe, 14th. And then, like I said, Magnus Chase after that, Kane Chronicles before that. Flick Street Productions says, how did you like Wrath of the Triple Goddess? I liked it. I liked the atmosphere of it. It's based around Halloween, so I'm a big Halloween season fan. I will say I don't think I like the plot as much as Chalice of the Gods. And I don't think, I mean, I'm not a big Sea of Monsters fan, so maybe I would rank these two books above Sea of Monsters, but I don't think they come anywhere close to the heights of something like Battle of the Labyrinth or even the Heroes of Olympus books. They're just for fun. They just kind of give an insight to what our characters are up to after the series and puts them in a little less perilous situation, which is fun. It's kind of like almost like an official fanfic version of Percy Jackson is what these last two books feel like. But I liked it. Yeah, I don't know that I liked it as much as Chalice of the Gods. Ascertain Dude IG says, will you be doing the rest of the Dune books? At least the second one. They're making a film coming out December of 2026 based on the second book. And yes, I will be doing that starting in January, so hopefully it is up in full on the channel in February. The book is called Dune Messiah. It's the second book of the Dune series. There are 6 books in the original Dune series. I will promise to do the first 2. I've already done the first one. Beyond that, I don't know yet. It may be a while before I get to book 3, but book 2 will certainly come out starting in January. Let's go to a question from Princess Lavacorn, who says, is Percy's sister a spoiler? Yes and no. So my rule with spoilers on these live chats is typically if the book is out for everybody on the channel, at least if the daily chapters are out for everybody for free on the channel, then I'm fine talking about spoilers, right? Once we get through Trials of Apollo, we can talk about the big scenes in Trials of Apollo. At the moment, no. But I will say the one spoiler that I'm okay talking about in Trials of Apollo, because of the fact that we've already done Chalice of the Gods and Wrath of the Triple Goddess, is Percy's mom is pregnant with her child with Paul Blofeld. And this is a girl. I feel like that's not a huge spoiler. It is addressed very early in Trials of Apollo, and I know that Trials of Apollo isn't out on YouTube yet, but it shows up very early on in the book, and it's not really much of a spoiler. It's just kind of a cute little, oh, that's cute, Sally's having a girl kind of thing. So yes, Percy does, by the end of Trials of Apollo, have a sister, but it's not really a spoiler. It's not super impactful to the series, if that makes any sense. And we already know about the pregnancy because of the most recent 2 Percy Jackson books. Question from Alex Bojan, who says, at what point did Grover get a girlfriend? Did I miss a book, or is this just a fun update dropped in our laps? Someone in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Grover gets a girlfriend prior to book 3? I could be wrong about that. It's never really set up, like you asked. It's kind of dropped in our laps. It's just one of those, oh, Grover has a girlfriend kind of thing. And I want to say that he doesn't have it in the first book, and I want to say he doesn't have the girlfriend in the second book either. I want to say it starts in the third book, but I could be wrong about that. But it is something that is in place by the fourth book, and we're well aware of it. Her name is Juniper. She shows up several times throughout the series. Flick Street Production says, I love the following chapter names in Chalice of the Gods. I teeter on the precipice of Mount Brunch, and the one with Lightning God 3000. I love those so much. Yeah, the fun thing about going back to the Percy Jackson series now is we have chapter titles. With Heroes, well, let's see here. Yeah, with Heroes of Olympus, we didn't get chapter titles. We just got like Leo 1, Leo 2, Leo 3, whatever. And then with Trials of Apollo, we get haikus to start every chapter, but it's not really a chapter title. So going back to Percy Jackson now, we have those chapter titles, and it's really fun to see Rick Riordan go back into that mindset. Joseph Morrill says, I only have one question, and I know you know the answer to it. Have you gotten to Epic the Musical yet? Be aware this was a Discord question. Yeah, I have started watching it, but my priorities are elsewhere at the moment. My priority in my free time, if I have free time right now, is recording these extra books for you behind me and getting to finish my book. And this week I have not been able to do anything. Someone asked about the updates on my book this week, and I said there has been nothing. It's been a very, very busy week. It's been a very, very stressful week for most people in this country. And so I just have not been able to get to it. There's been a lot going on, so. But yes, I have started it. I am aware of it now, more than I was before. Let's go to a question from Mirage GSM, who says, was the part about Sadie losing her accent at the beginning of Throne of Fire after just 3 months actually in the book, or did you just not want to do it anymore? No, I love doing accents. I've mentioned this on Livestream before. I would rather narrate an entire book with an accent than do my normal American accent. I find it easier to get into the characters. I find it easier to switch between accents if I don't start in my regular voice. That's why I like doing British accents so much. Like Harry Potter was very easy for me to do, very fun for me to do. With the Throne of Fire line, that is actually in the book. And I decided to keep her accent. There are a couple chapters where I kind of subdue it a little bit, but then I get back into it the more comfortable she gets, especially after she goes back to London and meets up with her friends. But yes, that line actually is in the book, where she starts to lose her accent once she's in Brooklyn for a little bit. Question from Bombtech Boy, who says, have you ever considered doing the Maze Runner books? I have. At the moment, they're not scheduled to be on the channel for quite a bit. I'm going to get through Aragon first. I'm going to get through Divergent first. I'm trying to think what else I have before it. Maze Runner for sure will start airing next fall as a daily chapter book. But before that, I don't entirely know, because right now it's sitting in the pile behind me. And so I actually... Sitting in the pile... Where is it? Oh, there it is, right there. Yes, it is in the pile behind me. So I am trying to do a couple chapters every couple months. It takes me about 2 months to get through this pile behind me, and every time a book comes through, I try to do 2 at a time. So, yes. Ascertain Dude IG says, wait, you're doing the Inheritance Cycle. Yes. I don't know when I'll get to Murtagh, but the first 4 at least will come out. I want to say Aragon will start either end of February, early March as a daily chapter book. And then I'm going to do Aragon, take a break to do Divergent, and then I'll do... Eldest is second, right? I'll do Eldest, and then the second book in the Divergent series, and then I'll go back and forth between the two as daily chapter books. But yes, I will get through the first 4 of the main Inheritance Cycle books eventually. But like I said, I think Aragon starts end of February, early March, if I'm remembering my schedule correctly. I'm through about the first 10 chapters at the moment. Let's go to a question from Brian Feltz, who says, Echo, I have a question. I was reading this book this morning and went to go pull it up on my school computer and keep listening, and it wasn't there. Do you know why? My guess would be because your school computer is set up for, has firewalls through it. I know typically at least when I was in high school, our school system didn't allow you to go on YouTube through the school computers. So if your school has a firewall that rejects normal videos that aren't educational, most of my videos are not set for educational purposes. They're set for entertainment purposes. So the only videos that you'd probably be able to pull up on the channel are like my Bible readings or like my Magic Treehouse book recordings, if that makes any sense. Flick Street Productions says, I love doing accents too. For my audiobook reading of High Fire, which is set in Louisiana, I'll be doing a Southern Fried New Orleans accent. Yeah, I did a New Orleans accent for Hazel's mother in Son of Neptune, and I guess it came off as insensitive to a lot of people, I guess, and I didn't mean it to. It was just supposed to be a Louisiana accent. It wasn't supposed to be like a black caricature by any means, so... yeah, I love doing accents. Obviously, my normal accent is pretty much Canadian border. With Frank, I always say this on live streams, like Frank is my favorite voice to do because it's my natural accent turned up to 11. I love doing British accents. I'm not very good at Northern British accents, but I like doing the Southern and Western ones. But yeah, I love doing accents. It's a lot of fun. And they've gotten a lot better since I started doing audiobooks, let me tell you. Let's go to a question from Christy Meeks. A couple questions here. Do you plan to add the rest of the Shadow Children series, and can you please complete the set? Yes. So the Shadow Children are in the books behind me. So my goal with the Shadow Children series is to have a new one every couple of months. I just got done with the 5th one. It aired 2 days ago on the channel, so you can find books 1 through 5. I have yet to start recording book 6, but hopefully it is up on the channel around about Christmas time, maybe early January. At the latest is what I'm looking for book 6, and then book 7 sometime early in the spring. So every couple of months. They're not popular enough for me to justify doing them as daily chapter books, at least on the channel. Like, they're not getting as many views as Percy Jackson or any of the other stuff. So, yes, I will get to them eventually. March at the latest, I would say, for book 7. White Squid says, "What's up? I'm back. Nice to see you, White Squid." Let's go to a question from Daughter of Eris, who says, "Why is Frank low-key depressed?" I don't know that I would ever describe Frank as outright depressed, but I will say this. Frank's backstory in Heroes of Olympus is based on this idea. I can't remember if there's an actual name for it, but it's this concept. It's very common in the southern United States. It's very common in southern Italy, and it's very common in northern England. And it has to do with generational depression, if that makes any sense. So, for example, in northern England, it has historically been very poor there. It has historically been a lot of factory work and not very well supported by the wealth of southern England. It's been the same way in the United States since a little after the Civil War. The South has always been very poor compared to the North. And with that, there are less opportunities for people in these poorer regions of countries. And it results in kind of a generational depression. And so after 3 or 4 generations of living in this kind of hopeless state, it starts to affect the mentality of the people living in these regions and the people that have grown up descended from the people in these regions, if that makes any sense. So with Frank, he's not necessarily from any of these regions. His grandmother's very wealthy. They live in Vancouver. Vancouver's a very affluent city for the most part, especially for people like Frank. But with Frank's backstory, his connection to the Romans is one that is very, very frowned upon. Like, the Romans do not like Frank or his family. And so that's where this kind of generational depression sits on Frank. And people pick on him because of it, and it starts to wear on him. And you can see that in his story. So it's very similar with that concept with his character. So I don't think Frank is outright depressed, but he has this background with his family because of the prejudice people have against his family within the Roman camp, if that makes any sense. Gosi says, just joined, so sorry if this was already asked, but will you do Trials of Apollo? Yeah, it's currently up over on Patreon. The first book airs on Patreon tomorrow morning, and it will start airing on the channel in December. So yeah, it's about 2 months in advance over on Patreon. Let's go to a question from, I only have a few more pre-prepared questions, so if you guys have questions you want answered in the chat, feel free to drop them in the chat. It'll probably be a shorter live stream today. I'll have to wrap it up around about 4 Eastern time, which is a little over an hour from now, so if we get that far, that's great. But I kind of prepared for this to be a less active chat than usual, if that makes any sense, because of the time difference. Let's go to a question from Pogo Sam, who says, do you think you'll be doing the full Fablehaven series? The answer is yes, but similar to something like, I have a couple questions coming up where I'll give the same answer. Fablehaven is currently airing over on Patreon. Daily chapters, it will start on the channel in December. And the answer is yes, but there's like 10, 15 books in the Fablehaven series, and it will take me a long time to get to. So I'm not going to do one after the other. I'm not even going to do one every other like I'm doing with a lot of these other books, like I mentioned, the Inheritance Cycle. What I'm going to do is do the first Fablehaven book, probably take a break from the series for a while. The second one I might get to without it being a daily chapter book. And so the future of the Fablehaven series, I have no idea when it's going to air on the channel. Eventually we'll get to all of them. My plan is to do all of them, but I have no idea when, if that makes any sense. GoC says, do you think it'll be published for free? Yeah, it'll be up on YouTube starting in December. Bros says, you don't get enough credit for your awesome narrating. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I always mention that I would do this for free. I enjoy doing this enough where I don't expect to make money off of this. If you want to support me monetarily, I do have a Patreon page, like I mentioned, patreon.com/echoworm. The minimum price is currently at $3. Because of Patreon raising their own prices, I'm going to have to raise that minimum to $5 at New Year's. And so be prepared for that. I'm not doing this as kind of a money grab thing. The backstory to this, right, is Apple is changing the way that they're doing the App Store. And so Apple is forcing app creators and app websites to pay them a minimum fee to be on the App Store, which is different than it currently is. So Patreon is having to pay Apple now for using subscription services in the App Store. The result of that is Patreon has to raise their prices to me. I have to pay Patreon more of a minimum every month to use that service. And then that trickles down to you guys through me then, because I'm not making a minimum off of Patreon. And like I said, I will do this for free. I'm never going to hide content from you guys over on Patreon. There will always be content coming out from Patreon to the channel. Right now, it's just 2 months in advance. So if you want that in advance of the channel, that's where Patreon comes in handy for me as a content creator. I get a little extra, but I don't make any money on YouTube. So I very much appreciate you giving me credit. Let's see here. Flick Street Productions says, I'm starting to get into the humorous time travel genre. Does time travel literature appeal to... Yeah, I'm a huge... not necessarily literature, but I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. Like, Doctor Who is my second favorite TV show of all time. I'm a huge Doctor Who nerd. You can't see any of my trinkets, but on the other side of my camera, I have a ton of just, like, TARDIS memorabilia and Doctor Who stuff. So, yeah, I love time travel fiction. Atlantis Gaming says, what is your favorite new cast of Percy Jackson Season 2? I have no idea. I haven't really been keeping up with the casting. I will watch it when it comes out, but I don't know how to describe it. I haven't been into the news as much as maybe you guys have wanted me to be. I'm curious to see what the new characters will look like, because there are new characters coming out that are different than there are in the books. They're adding characters that aren't in there. But my one question is, did they recast Zeus yet? That I don't know. I'm going to look that up real quick and kill some time. So if it feels like dead air, I do apologize. Zeus, Percy Jackson, TV show. It has been recast. Or they're intending to recast it. It has not been announced yet. I've given my thoughts on this. So Lance Reddick, the original actor who played Zeus, died prior to the release of Season 1. So the original actor who played Zeus in Season 1 is no longer living. Zeus is such an integral character to the series that I don't see how they could get around not having him in the series anymore. And so I think to best fit the character, of all the actors that I know, I think it's Isaiah Washington would be the best option to replace Lance Reddick. They're very similar in the way they look and the way they act. He played Chancellor Jaha on The 100, and I think he would be a very good replacement, but I'm not the casting director, so... Ghosty says, is there any specific book that's a favorite of yours to voice? Yeah, I really enjoyed narrating The Giver. I really enjoyed narrating the Spiderwick Chronicles. Spiderwick Chronicles aren't available on YouTube for copyright purposes, but they are available for free on Patreon and Vimeo with the links down below. You're more than welcome to listen to them. Like I said, they're for free. They're just not on YouTube. Flick Street Productions says, I liked the Magic Treehouse books growing up. I didn't know you were covering them. Can't wait to listen to your readings of them. Hopefully you enjoy them. So I probably read through the first 40 of them before I stopped reading them. That was about the time I was maybe 10 years old that they stopped. Not that they stopped, but I stopped reading them about the time I was 10 years old, and I think they were through the first 40. And so now I'm caught up with that on the channel, and I'm at the point where now I'm finally recording Magic Treehouse books that I've never read before, and it's very interesting to see where the series has gone since I stopped reading them, if that makes any sense. Because I'm trying to think, there's like 70 or 80 books now, and like I said, I stopped around 2010-ish, maybe. But yeah, those are available in the Magic Treehouse folder. Let's go to a question from Sarcastic King Dude, who says, which Echo Worm channel do I listen to? There's an Echo Worm Audiobooks and just Echo Worm. Yeah, if you find any channels beyond those that are titled Echo Worm and are taking credit for my content, they are not mine. However, Echo Worm Audiobooks, which is the channel that this live stream is airing on, is where we air daily chapters. So every single day we do a chapter of a Rick Riordan book, and we do a chapter of something else. Right now, I believe it's The Last Battle, the final of the Chronicles of Narnia series. And then that changes when we're done with each book. And then once those are done, they air as full versions over on our other channel. So that other channel is literally just called Echo Worm. So we have Echo Worm Audiobooks, which is the daily channel, and our live stream channel, and our podcast channel. And then we have Echo Worm, which is the collection of everything. So both of them are mine. You can listen on either channel. This channel has all of the Echo Worm content in the playlists. So don't be confused by that. It's all the same. It's all coming from the same spot. Flick Street Production says, have you ever watched any film noir films growing up? Yeah, I am a big fan of noir, specifically Nordic noir, and most of that comes from the fact that that's my culture, for lack of a better term, but I'm a big fan of Nordic noir films and like 1920s, 1930s, pseudo jazz noir films, if that makes any sense. If you don't have a ton of time to watch like an actual noir film and you want something that kind of gives the same vibes, the Black Mirror episode Crocodile is a very, very good short form version of Nordic noir. It's set in Iceland. It's based on just kind of the standard tropes of Nordic noir, but it's got the Black Mirror technology thing built into it. That's, I believe, season 4. It's called Crocodile. Let's go to a question from... Or first, I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Lady Ma'am, who asked for a shout out in this live stream, and I'm happy to oblige. Alex Beaujean says, since when are there these incident laws in Percy Jackson? They've done more than 3 people on a mission a bunch in the past. I believe your comment was on Battle of the Labyrinth, and I don't... Other than Titan's Curse, we've never seen more than 3 people on a mission. It's mentioned in Titan's Curse because Percy wants to go on the mission in Titan's Curse, and he's not allowed to. So if you're referring to what we've seen in the Titan's Curse, they address that in the Titan's Curse, that Percy sneaks alongside in the mission. He was not originally supposed to be a part of it. And then, of course, the rules are lifted for the Prophecy of the Seven because it's such a significant threat that then that changes. But within the Prophecy of the Seven, when we get to the end of the series, or even at the beginning of the series, all of the missions have to do with 3 people. So you see Jason, Piper, and Leo. You see Percy and Frank and Hazel. And then later on at the end of the series, you see Coach Hedge, Reyna, and Nico. I'm trying to think of other ones. Trials of Apollo. You get Apollo and Leo and Calypso in the second book. 3 is the magic number. And so they have these rules. It's not very common to break them. You might think they are based on what we've seen, but based on the rules that are established and the context that we're given, it is very rare to have less than 3 people or more than 3 people on a mission or on a quest. Flick Street Production says, have you ever watched the original Twilight Zone with Rod Serling? Yes, I have seen through it in its entirety. GoSee says, do you see any direction do you have any direction you see the channel going in the future? Yeah, so what's coming up in the future? So I'll start with the channel, and the channel is going to catch up with the Patreon. So, do apologize, have an alarm going off. Right now, like I said, we are finishing up the Chronicles of Narnia, and we are finishing up book 2, or we are starting book 2, about halfway through it, of Kane Chronicles, which is called The Throne of Fire. Once we're done with, let's start with the Rick Riordan stuff. So this is the stuff that airs at 11 o'clock Eastern every morning. Once we're done with The Throne of Fire, we will move on to Serpent's Shadow, which is the 3rd book. After Serpent's Shadow, then we'll start on Trials of Apollo. So starting in December, we'll get daily chapters of the Trials of Apollo. This is already all the way through the 1st book over on Patreon. Then we move into book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5 of Trials of Apollo. Once we're done with book 5 of Trials of Apollo, which brings us to about May-ish on the channel, then we will start doing Magnus Chase. This should take us all the way to next fall, and then we will be done with all of Rick Riordan's major series. And then we'll probably do daily chapters of the 8th Percy Jackson book, assuming it comes out next September. There has not been any indication of a release date yet. The longer it goes on that we don't get an indication of a release date for the 8th Percy Jackson book, the more I'm inclined to believe that it is going to come out at Christmas. So the last 2 books have come out in September. The first one doesn't really have a seasonal theme to it. The second book is very obviously based around Halloween. It takes place in October. It was released in September to kind of give that October Halloween vibe to it. My guess is, based on the timeline that we're getting for the series, in his senior year, the 3rd book is probably going to be a Christmas story. We've never really got a Christmas book for the Percy Jackson universe. So my guess is, if they don't set a release date by the spring, that the 8th Percy Jackson book will probably come out in December, and we'll do daily chapters on that one when it comes out. Apart from the Rick Riordan stuff, what airs at 1 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Eastern every night. Right now we're on Chronicles of Narnia. We'll finish Chronicles of Narnia in about 10 days or so, I believe. And then after that, we'll go back to Patreon. This is where it gets a little tricky because of the fact that I mentioned Spiderwick Chronicles we can't have on YouTube. We can't have our Harry Potter recordings on YouTube. And we also can't have our Hunger Games recording on YouTube. So with the daily chapter uploads of the Hunger Games, they air for free on Patreon at the same time, but they're just not available on YouTube. So you can find those over on Patreon. We'll start Catching Fire as soon as we're done with the last battle. We'll do Hunger Games Catching Fire. We've already done the first one. We've already done Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. You can find that over on Patreon and Vimeo. Catching Fire. After Catching Fire, then we will do Fablehaven. Once we're done with Fablehaven, then we'll do Mockingjay. Once we're done with Mockingjay, we'll do Dune Messiah. Once we're done with Dune Messiah, we will do Aragon. Once we're done with Aragon, we will do Divergent, and then we'll flip-flop and back and forth between those 2 series there. After that, I have no idea. This brings us to about the fall next year. Eventually, we'll start doing Maze Runner as well. Beyond that, those are the daily chapter uploads. Beyond that, I am working on doing A Song of Ice and Fire. I am working on doing just various other projects like Margaret Peterson Haddox's Shadow Children series, Margaret Peterson Haddox's Missing series, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I would like to continue to do. It's weird. Every book, it's been the opposite in every series. So, like, for example, my Percy Jackson recordings, the first book has a lot, second book has a lot, but not as much, and it continues to decrease the longer the series goes on. Every time I upload a new Wimpy Kid book, it gets more views than the last one, and I have no idea why that is. But if that continues, I will continue to do more Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. We're going to do more Magic Treehouse stuff. We'll do all of the Rick Riordan side books. I've already done the Demigod Files and Demigod Diaries. I have recorded Demigods and Magicians. We're going to do Greek Gods and Greek Heroes. We'll do all the Kane Chronicles stuff, the Magnus Chase stuff. And then beyond that, Artemis Fowl, J.R.R. Tolkien, City of Ember, A Series of Unfortunate Events. There's a bunch of other series that we'll get to that aren't going to air as daily chapters. They're just kind of when I get to them. So that's coming out in the future. I just have no set dates for that. But that is a very long-winded version of what is coming up on the channel. Yaya Aziz says, if you could pick the different POVs in Percy Jackson, which characters... Sorry, I'm trying to understand this question here. If you could pick the different POVs in a Percy Jackson book, which characters would you choose? So, Percy Jackson books only have one POV. It's Percy. But if you're asking like something like the Heroes of Olympus books, if I were to choose who the POVs are from, my favorite POVs are Frank, Leo, Annabeth, and Nico are my favorite 4 POVs in Heroes of Olympus. So those would be the 4 that I would choose from. If I had the option to do all 7, including Nico, I'd probably do that. The POVs I don't enjoy very much are Jason, Piper, and Reyna. Beyond that, I'm indifferent to the ones that I didn't name. But yeah, I really enjoy reading for Leo. I really enjoy reading for Frank. I really enjoy Annabeth's POV chapters. And there was another character that Nico. I enjoy reading for Nico. Which is why The Sun and the Star is so fun to read. Sun and the Star will come up on the channel after Trials of Apollo. Let's go to a question from Kensley Cole, who says, is nobody going to talk about how Will is dating his aunt's friend's little brother? A couple different thoughts on that question. So, it's Greek mythology. Everybody's dating everyone's cousin. Like, Percy is cousins with Annabeth's mom. And Jason is cousins with Piper's mom. Kind of, depending. It's a long story. Same with, like, Frank and Hazel. comes to this situation specifically, so you say, is nobody going to talk about how Will is dating his aunt's friend's little brother? Now, keep in mind, Bianca D'Angelo was only in the Hunters for like a month or less. She wasn't there very long. So Nico's connection to Artemis is very, very small. So yes, the situation that you're referring to is correct, but I don't think it's as impactful as you think it is. Like, Bianca was not a Hunter for very long, and Nico's connection with Artemis is not very big. But at the same time, Nico is dating his cousin's son, would be the best way to put it into perspective, if that makes any sense. Flick Street Production says, do you often read the physical versions of the books you record? Unlike me, as I read them in my Kindle. Yeah, what I do is very uncommon for audiobook readers. Most of the time, people will read them on, like, actual screen, so you don't hear the book opening and closing and whatnot. I like doing the book stuff. I think it gives more of a personal feel to it, and it also allows me to keep track of things easier. I can put things back on my shelf and remember what I've finished and what I haven't finished. It gives me a tangible physical view of what I'm giving to you guys on the channel, if that makes any sense. I also enjoy reading better when I'm reading it out of an actual book. Let's go to a question. Let me know if there's some latency. The battery on my laptop is dying because OBS doesn't allow you to charge when you're recording. So if you're getting some lag, let me know in the chat below. But there's only a few more pre-prepared questions. You guys are more than welcome to keep asking questions in the chat. What's Up Bree says, I love hearing the pages turn. Yeah, that's why I do it. It's I'm not trying to be a professional audiobook reader. My goal is to make you guys feel like you are being read to by like a dad or an older brother or that sort of thing. I'm just trying to be someone who provides you with a comfortable reading experience. Antonio Rodriguez says, do you have any plans for reading The Sun and the Star after Trials of Apollo? Yeah, I think I just said that. The Sun and the Star it takes place after Trials of Apollo. And so with that, there are significant spoilers in this book that I would be uncomfortable revealing to you guys without having finished Trials of Apollo. So I am actively recording it when I have time to. It will be done by the time we're finished with Trials of Apollo, and then I'll put it up as soon as Trials of Apollo is done. So you guys will get the last Trials of Apollo book, and then instantly the next day, you'll get every single part of Sun and the Star. Let's go to a question from Jeff Cowley, who says, how's your knee? Good question. I think I mentioned on the podcast last week that I tore my meniscus, and so I am in constant knee pain at the moment. So thank you for asking. It's doing better. The goal is so it's a partial tear. It's not a complete tear. And the goal is to stay off of it for 4 weeks so that I can avoid having surgery that would require me to rehab it for 15 weeks, which means that instead of sitting out a month for hockey, I have to miss my entire hockey season, and I really don't want to do that because I enjoy playing hockey, and I don't want to miss my entire year. Flick Street Production says, favorite Nancy Drew book and favorite Hardy Boys book. I have never... I don't know that I have a Nancy Drew favorite book. It's been a long time since I read them, and I don't own physical copies of them, so I couldn't tell you names off the top of my head. Favorite Hardy Boys book, I would probably say Boardwalk Bust. But yeah, eventually those books will be up on the channel as well. I did put a good Goosebumps book out, so you're welcome. I rushed that ahead in my schedule to get that out before before Halloween, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. That's another one of those series that I will probably have one book every couple of months or so. Go See says, I bought Sun and the Star before even buying my Trials of Apollo books, and I always stared at wanting to read it. I would not. If you've never read Trials of Apollo and you don't know the spoilers in Trials of Apollo, don't read Sun and the Star because it's going to spoil it very early on for you and take away the impact of what happens in Trials of Apollo. Let's go to a question from Phoenix Suns fan 21, who says, is your podcast available on Spotify? Yeah, the podcast. So what we do this live stream happens every other Thursday. And in the Thursdays that we don't do a live stream, we do a separate live stream for the podcast. We record the podcast live. Right now, we're going through all the Harry Potter books and analyzing them. Once we're done with Harry Potter, we'll move on to Percy Jackson and do that too. So if you guys are interested in joining us for that, you can find it on the channel in the playlist titled The Echo Chamber, Or if you listen to podcasts or music on Apple Music or Spotify or Amazon Music, you can find it over there by looking for the Echo Worm Echo Chamber. Flick Street Productions says, I'm sad that Monty Python is no longer on Netflix. Are you disappointed? I didn't know they were on Netflix, to be honest with you. I am not... I enjoy Monty Python, but I'm not, like... I'm not British. It doesn't hit as hard in America as it does over in the United Kingdom. Not saying that you are British, but I didn't grow up with Monty Python. Let's go to a question from William McCarthy, who says, when is the next book in the Missing series coming? The Missing series is one of those. I'm going to finish the Shadow Children series first because of the fact that we're already through 5 of them. I would like to finish all 7 before I move on to something else, especially from the same author. So I released Found, which is the first of the 8 Missing series books, and I will get to Scent after we're done with the Shadow Children. So probably May-ish, if that makes sense. I know that seems like a long ways away, but when you look at how many books are right behind me and in front of me and are on the docket, and the fact that I don't do this as a full-time job, hopefully I'll have the second book done by May. You can see it, which side? Right there, where my finger's pointing, is the second book. And then a set of final questions here. And then you guys, like I said, you guys can keep asking for a little bit in the chat below. And we'll stay as long as I'm able to. So feel free to keep asking questions. But Yasin Yafi says, who wrote The Radiation Effect? When is the next release of the Radiation Effect book going to come out? Also, is the first book finished? And is it going to be a series or just a singular book? So The Radiation Effect is my own personal book. I have been trying to write a book for as long as I can remember, and this is the furthest that I have ever gotten in recording, or in writing an actual book. And then what I've been doing is every time I finish a chapter, I will upload it as an audiobook to the channel. So you guys can find that in the folder labeled The Radiation Effect. I believe we're through the first 19 chapters, and I'm working on chapter 20 at the moment. So yes, I wrote it. It's an original writing. There are a bunch of questions. I got a question asking why I killed off a certain character. I'm not going to reveal who I killed off. That was a choice. I mean, why does any author kill off any character? It's to impact the story in a significant way. It's to progress other character arcs in a certain direction. It is to impact the characters and their character development. It wasn't because I hated a character and I wanted to get rid of them. I very much enjoyed writing for that character. It just was the correct thing to do, if that makes any sense, for the sake of the story. The second question in that was, when is the next release of the Radiation Effect book going to come out? It depends when I finish. So like I said, I have not had a lot of time at all this week to do any writing. There was, of course, I have a full-time job outside of this. There was election stuff yesterday. I'm playing a show tomorrow night for music, and so I have been really busy with that. All of my free time at the moment has been caught up with a variety of things other than writing and other than recording audiobooks, which bums me out a little bit, but that's the sake of weeks at the moment. And so my goal is to have it out on Patreon by the end of next week, but I can't actually make that promise. In terms of the YouTube channel, probably a week or 2 from now. Next question in that was, is the first book finished? It's not. The first book I'm hoping to have finished sometime middle of next year. Right now we're about 2/3 through it. I've been writing it for about 11 months in its current form. And you asked, is it going to be a series or just a singular book? It's going to be a series. My plan at the moment is 7 books. So the first one, as soon as I finish it on the channel, I will start doing the same thing that I've been doing with the second book. So as I'm trying to publish it and send it off to an actual publisher, I will continue to update you guys with chapters from the second book. If you guys are interested in reading or learning more about it, I do have a wiki page. Me and a couple of other fans, I guess you could say, of the series have been discussing it over on our Discord channel. You guys can go down in the description below and check out our Discord. We talk about plenty of stuff. The most active channel is probably the one having to do with the Radiation Effect. But we also started a wiki, so let me show you here. If you go to irea.fandom.com, which there is a link in the description below, you guys can check out the Radiation Effect wiki. It's not super in-depth at the moment, but you can learn more about the characters, you can learn more about the backstories. I'm slowly updating the chapter pages, if that makes any sense, so you guys can get summaries of each chapter. But for example, this is kind of the main character, Emma, and just kind of an AI description picture of her. Eventually, I'd love it if you guys are artists and would be interested in doing artwork for the book. I would love to have that on the wiki and on the channel as well. But this gives a little description of the background of her character, some trivia. Eventually, I'll update with relationships and that sort of thing. But that is the wiki for the Radiation Effect, if you guys are interested in checking that out. Flick Street Production says, were you a fan of Elvis growing up? I was not really a fan of Elvis growing up. My music tastes are very modern, I guess. Very modern and very not rock and rollish. I am not a fan of 80s hair metal. I am not a fan of... My dad's a big 70s rock guy, so I guess I got Elvis influence from that, but I am definitely more of a hip-hop trap guy. So I also have links to my music in the description below if you guys want to listen to that, but that is something you guys can do in your own free time. So beyond that, I am out of questions that were pre-prepared. If you guys have any, I'll stick around. You guys can ask them in the chat below. But otherwise, we will maybe wrap things up in about 10 minutes or so. Quick little live stream today. I'm going to check the channel for any questions that I may have missed earlier. At this point, I think I should give a shout out to all of the people on Patreon. So this hasn't been updated in a few days, so I do apologize to any of my new members who are not included on this, but all of my $5 a month or more patrons are included on this list. Andrew Gomez, Angela Rodriguez, Aiden, Adora Shadow, Braden Vera, Duncan Burley, Aaron Marie Thompson, Faded, Hardip Singh, Jackson Furr, Jeff McJefferson, Kate S., Kylie Morton, Lindsay Wood, Lucy Ranson, Lucy, Lyra, MB, Mirage GSM, R, Riley Smeaton, Sadie Martinez, Suniva Gronley, Taylor Grandy, Trevor Lyman, Trusty Astorius, X-Ray, X-Pogo Sam, Yeni Diaz, and Alexei Staryakov, as well as my top tier patrons. So $10 a month or more is the League 2. If you're $10 a month or more, you get this at the end of basically every chapter video. I put this screen at the end, so you get a little shout out there. $10 a month or more, Brandon Doty, Hessa Al-Habashi, Rockin' Ryan 99, Victoria Libretto, Rania, Katie Rose, Knickerdoodles, Goose, and Srinija Srinivasan. $15 a month or more is the League 1 tier. That's Sneevatics. And my champion tier, which is kind of fun, I get to plug this. Everybody who's $25 a month or more gets a free book every single month. So if you want to join the book club and get a free copy of whatever we're covering over on the channel, I just sent out copies to everybody today of, I believe I sent out the first of the Trials of Apollo book. I'm spacing out at the moment. I believe it was the first one there. But everybody on this list, John Buck, Charles Jacobson, Donald Easter, Dalton Bailey, Lydia Bryant, Zhukov Crawford, and Joseph Morrill, they don't have to pay any extra beyond that $25 a month or more. I give you a free book at the beginning of every single month. And I'm happy to do so if you guys join over on patreon.com/EchoWorm. Let's see here. Flick Street Productions says, I play bass guitar, piano, drums, and vocals. What do you play? I play pretty much everything you don't have to blow into. I've never been a wind player. I can play a saxophone, but not well. But I'm a jazz-trained bass player, and I pretty much play everything. Specifically, what do you play live? I have always been the bass player for our band. At the moment, we're just a two-piece, though, so I have transitioned over to keyboards, and I'm playing different parts with different hands, so. Yeah, wish us luck. We're playing our first two-piece show tomorrow. It'll be different. It's definitely a different feel to everything without a third member of the band. What does your shirt say? I'm glad you know. So, let me stand up here. I don't know if any of you guys are soccer fans or football fans, but there's a Chelsea FC in London has their primary goal scorer at the moment is Cole Palmer, and he has been so hot in this season. He's been basically ice cold, and so they call him Cold Palmer. And this was a meme shirt that my wife bought me. I don't know how to describe it. It's basically Cole Palmer's face superimposed on the annoying orange, and then they turned it blue. So, I don't know. Really stupid, but I enjoy it. Flick Street Production says, what genre is your band? I would definitely say alternative hip-hop would be the best way to describe it. If you took 21 Pilots and mixed it with Kanye West, you're going to get something kind of close. So, there's links below. With that being said, I think I'm going to wrap up today's live stream. Thank you guys very much for joining today. I really appreciate every single one of you for just supporting the channel and continuing to enjoy these books that I enjoy through the medium that I have provided. So thank you guys very much for being a part of it. And if you are a subscriber, or especially if you're a patron, you guys go above and beyond what I ask of you. I will always do this for you guys, regardless of if I'm making money or not. You just get a little advanced 2 months or so from the channel, and it's fun for me to do for you guys. So I will hopefully see you guys next week for the podcast. We're starting Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Check out any of the links below if you're interested, including our Discord chat. You guys can continue this conversation down in that below. But otherwise, we will see you next week, or see you in 2 weeks for our next Q&A.